Hello, everyone. Um, my name is Oshawa Samson, and I will be your instructor today. I'll be your instructor for this boot camp. So, this boot camp basically is targeted to for people who are interested in cloud computing, who are just starting out in cloud computing. So, we'll be looking at what is cloud computing. We'll also be looking at virtualization, Linux, Git, and other stuffs. So please, if you can hear me, just type yes so that I will know that you can hear me. If you can hear me, just type yes. If you can hear me, just type yes on the. Okay. 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 So thank you, engineer. Okay. So let me start afresh. So my name is Oshawa Samson, and I'll be your instructor for this boot camp. Basically, this boot camp is targeted for people who are starting out in cloud computing. So we are going to look at the foundation of cloud computing, like what is cloud computing, types of virtualization, and so many other things in cloud computing. So, without further ado, without wasting time, so let's go into what we are here for. So, we are going to look at what cloud computing is. So, I have a slide that I will show. So, I have prepared a slide for it. So, I will share my screen now so that we'll look at the slides. Then after the slide, we can now go into practicals of what we will be doing. So let me share my screen now. So if you can see my screen, just type yes, I can see your screen so that we can continue. If you can see my screen, just indicate by typing yes. Okay. Okay. So So let's look at what cloud computing is. So this definition is according to AWS. So you can see that cloud computing is an on-demand delivery of IT resources over the internet with pay-as-you-go pricing. So instead of buying, owning, and maintaining physical data centers and servers, you can access technology services such as computing power, storage, and databases as as needed uh, on as needed basis from a cloud provider like Amazon Web Services. So what are they talking about? So let me simplify it by using our everyday activity. So what cloud computing is all about is uh, a company will buy computers and rent it out to other companies or individuals for them to use. For example, let's say someone builds a house, you can go and hire the house at a certain price for a certain period of time. So the same thing applies in cloud computing. So some individuals or companies like AWS, Google Cloud, or Azure. So what they do is that they buy their systems and rent it out for other companies or individuals to use it at a particular time at a particular price. So now, what does this solve? What does it solve? So what it solves is that instead of, okay, for example, if a company needs to execute a project, let's say for 6 months now, so without cloud computing, what they will do is that they will buy systems. Let's say they need 10 systems. They will buy the 10 systems. They will rent a place to keep these systems. They will um they will pay for electricity and so many other overhead costs. So and um, instead of going through this stress and also paying so much, what they do is that they will just buy one system, log into AWS, and create 10 systems, 10 virtual systems. So this will reduce costs for them, and also it will reduce stress for them. So that's the importance of cloud computing. So let's look at advantages of cloud computing. So the first advantage is backup and restore data. So once the data is stored in cloud, it's easier to get backup and restore data using the cloud. So once you are able to create these virtual systems, you can back up your data on the cloud, which will make it easier for you to access this data anywhere you are. So the second one is improved collaboration. So cloud application improve collaboration by allowing group of people to quickly and easily share information in the cloud via shared storage. So if you're working as a team, so you will be able to share your data easily and quickly using cloud. Then the third one is excellent accessibility. So cloud allows us to quickly and easily access store information anywhere, anytime in the whole world using internet connection. So internet cloud infrastructure increases organization productivity and efficiency by ensuring that our data is always accessible. So this means that you can access your data anywhere in the world. So you must not be at a particular location before you can access your data. So, but if you have your system stored somewhere, that means you need to go to that particular location to access your data. But if your data is stored in the cloud, you can access your data anywhere in the world. So let's look at another one. Then the next advantage of cloud computing is low maintenance cost. So cloud computing reduces both hardware and software maintenance costs for organization. So now you don't need to pay for electricity to for these computers. You don't need network engineers to maintain these computers. You don't need hardware engineers to maintain these computers. So what you just need is just to pay AWS, and AWS will manage this infrastructure for you. So the next one is service in the pay per use model. So this pay-per-use model is pay as you go. For example, if you want to use AWS services just for one day, you just pay for one day. If you want to use this for 1 month, you just pay for 1 month. If you want to use this for a year, you just pay for 1 year. Even if you want to use it for 30 minutes, you just pay for 30 minutes. So that is um, cloud computing and the advantages of cloud computing. So please, if you have any question, just drop your question on the chat. When I'm done, I'll be able to answer as much questions as I can. So now let's look at virtualization. What virtualization is all about. So virtualization is technology that you can use to create virtual representation of servers, storage, network, and other physical machines. So virtual software mimic the function of physical hardware to run multiple virtual machines simultaneously on a single physical machine. So businesses use virtualization to use their hardware resources efficiently and get greater returns from their investments. It also power cloud computing services that help organizations manufacture infrastructure more efficiently. So now, what is virtualization? So I'll explain it in a simple term. So virtualization, so let me just give example of what virtualization is. So now, we have MasterCard, we have physical MasterCard. So this physical MasterCard, if you have used app like Payday, you'll see that you can create virtual MasterCard, which will have the same features as your physical MasterCard. For example, you know that features of physical MasterCard, the requirement is that it will contain the name of the card, the name of the person on the card, it will contain the card number, it will also contain the CVV, and also the date of expiration. So these are the features of a physical MasterCard. So if you use something like Payday, this is not an advert for Payday. I'm just using it as an example. So if you use an app like Payday, you will see that you can also create a virtual MasterCard, which in that case, you don't need to be carrying about your physical MasterCard. You can create your virtual MasterCard and it will contain the same features of that physical MasterCard, like your name, the card number, the CVV, and the expiring date. And also, you can use the virtual MasterCard to make your transaction. So so in the same way, you can create virtual computers. So you can create virtual computers. So there are softwares that you can use to create these virtual computers. So a computer, the features of a physical computer is one, it will have storage, it will have memory, right, like RAM, and it will have processor. So now these are the three major features of what a computer. So now we have software that can replicate this feature, which will make it possible for you to create a virtual computer. So that is the process of creating this virtual computer is what we call virtualization. So now, so we have two types of virtualization. Let's go to the next one. So let's look at the importance of virtualization. So the first one is that it reduces costs, right? It reduces cost. So you don't need so you can have one physical computer and create like 10 virtual computers. So in that case, it will reduce your electricity cost, your maintenance cost, and the space. That's where you keep these systems. You need to pay for it. So it reduces cost. Then you are not limited by proximity if you want to access these computers. So you don't You are not limited, so you don't need to go to a physical place to be able to access this computer. So you can access these computers anywhere in the world. So developers can test different applications on different operating systems with ease. So for example, if you are a programmer, you can test different your application on different operating systems. Like if you are using Windows, you can test your application on Linux or Mac. So that's the importance of virtualization. So let's look at hypervisor. So now, hypervisor is a program used to run and manage one or more virtual machine on a computer. So you can, so I told you that a program that helps in creating virtual computers. So virtual computers are also known as virtual machines. So Hypervisor is a program that helps in creating virtual computers or virtual machines. So we have two types of hypervisors. We have the type 1 hypervisor, and we also have the type 2 hypervisor. So let's look at the type 2 hypervisor, because that's the one we'll be doing on this bootcamp. So the type 2 hypervisor run as a software layer on top of the operating system of the host computer. So now, when you buy a computer newly, it's totally blank. Then the next thing you need to do is to install an operating system like Windows, Linux, or Mac, depending on the system. So when you install the operating system. So the next thing you need to install, after installing the operating system, you can now install MS Word and other softwares. So the same way, after installing your operating system, you can now install the hypervisor, which is the type 2 hypervisor. We are going to do that. So example of this type 2 hypervisor is the Oracle machine, VM workstation. These are example of type 2 hypervisor. So the one we'll be using on this bootcamp is Oracle Virtual Machine. So now the type 1 hypervisor runs directly on the host computer's physical hardware. So these hypervisors are typically faster and more efficient than type 2 hypervisors. So now type 2 hypervisor is what the cloud uses. So you install it directly on the hardware. You don't install it on top of the operating system. You install it directly on the hardware. So I have a picture here. I have a picture here that shows an example of what I am saying. So this is the type 2 hypervisor. So the first of all is the hardware. Then after the hardware, you now install the operating system. So that's why we have the what? The host operating system. Then after that, you install the what? The hypervisor. So this hypervisor now helps you to create virtual computer or virtual machine. So after that, you can now install your operating system on top of the what? Of the hypervisor. We are going to do practical of this. So I know maybe you might not understand it very well, but when we do the practical, you will see how it works. Then the type 1 hypervisor. So the first one is you have the hardware. Then after the hardware, you have the hypervisor. So you can see the difference here. Here we install the host operating system on the hardware, but here we install the hypervisor directly on the hardware. Then after installing the hypervisor, you can now install the guest operating system. So now, let's start with the practicals. So So we are going to so we'll be installing Linux. So we'll be using Oracle VirtualBox. I put the link to this website on the description, so you can click on it. So depending on your operating system, you can download any of this. We have the Windows, we have the Mac, and we have the Linux. So I have already downloaded the Mac version, and I have installed that. Then the next one is the operating system that we'll be using, which is Ubuntu. So I've also put the link on the description, so you can click on it and download um, the operating system. So now, what you'll be downloading is this, the ISO, the desktop ISO. Please download. So this is one you will download. So I already downloaded it. So now let's look at how this works together. So now let me minimize this. So this is the Oracle VirtualBox. So I have already installed it on my system. So now this is the type 2 hypervisor. So what I will do is that I will use it to create a virtual machine or a virtual computer. So I'll use it to create a virtual machine or a virtual computer. So now to create a virtual machine, so after downloading and installing it, so to create a virtual machine, I'll click on new. So if I click on new, so it will bring out this. Then I will type any name here. But let me just use Ubuntu. I'll type any name here. So let me just use Ubuntu. So I'll click on this. So here I will select the image. That's the image that I have downloaded. That's the ISO that I have downloaded, which is what? Ubuntu. Then I'll click on others. So here, so look at the image of the operating system that I just downloaded. So now I'll select this. So I click on desktop, I'll select this and click what? Open. Then after that, then I'll click on next. Sorry about that. So click on next. Oh, sorry. So let me select this. Next. Sorry, let me cancel this. Let's type another, let's say Ubuntu 1. Let's click on this. Yes. So now, so here I'll type what? My username. So let's use Ubuntu as my username. Then here I'll type my password. So we can leave this to as it is. We can leave this to as it is. Then click on next. Then here, so I told you that a physical computer have three important features that it must have. So the first one is what? The memory, that's the RAM. Then the second one is the hard disk, that's the storage. So now, so this is the RAM. So um, let me give it 4 gig, 4,000 gig memory. Then this is the processor. So let me just give it 4. So before. Then click on next. So now this is where I'll create the hard disk or the storage. So the default is 25 gig. So let me just leave it at that. Then click on next. So this is the summary of everything. So this is the summary of everything. Then if you are okay with it, then you click on finish. So it's installing the operating system on my newly created virtual machine or virtual computer. So if you have any question, drop it on the chat and I will answer as much as I can. Okay, Golden is asking what's the difference between the guest OS and the host OS. So now the guest, let me start with the host OS. The host OS is the operating system on your physical machine. So now if you buy a new system, it will be blank. Nothing will be inside it. So the next thing is to install an operating system on that hardware. So once you install the operating system on that hardware, so that is what the host OS. The OS there is operating system. So that's the host OS. Then the guest OS is after you have installed your host OS or host operating system, you can use it. You install what we call a hypervisor. Then after installing a hypervisor, you can use the hypervisor to create a virtual computer or a virtual machine. So when you create a virtual machine, you now install another operating system on that virtual machine, which is what I'm doing now. I'm installing, so you can see that my host OS is Mac. My host OS is Mac OS. But now I have created a virtual computer or a virtual machine, which I am installing Linux on it. So this Linux that I am installing on my virtual machine is what is called the guest OS. So Gordon, I hope you understand that. So if you have any other question, kindly drop it on the chat. I will try as much as possible to answer the much that I can. So let's okay. Chineye is asking what is virtual machine. So I've given an example before. So virtual machine. So I don't know if you have used app that creates a virtual card. For example, your MasterCard. So you know that you can create a virtual card that you can use to buy things online, right? So now the same way you create a virtual MasterCard that can use to buy things online is the same way you can also create a virtual computer. So virtual computer is the same thing as virtual machine. So virtual computer is the same thing as virtual machine. So once you create a virtual computer, so that virtual computer is also known as virtual machine. So that's that. I hope you understand that, Chine. So if any other person have question, you can drop it on the chat. Let me look at it. So you can see now that our guest OS is installing, which is what Linux, which is Linux. So there are different types of Linux operating system. We have the Ubuntu, we have the Debian, we have Fedora, and so many flavors of what Linux operating system. So the one that we are installing is Ubuntu, which we have different versions. So the specific one that we are installing is Ubuntu 20, version 20. That is what we are installing right now. So let's give it some time to install. So if you have any question, kindly drop it. If you are just joining us, you're welcome. So this will take some time. It will not take too long. So let's just give it some minutes to install. Okay, David is asking if the session is being recorded. Actually, it will be on our YouTube page. So anytime you are free, you can come back to our YouTube page and you can look at it again. Okay, Golden is asking which of the virtual box you are to download. I there is a link on the description, to VirtualBox. So it depends on the operating system you are using. Like if you go to the link, you'll see different operating system. You see for Mac OS, you see for Windows, and you see for Linux. So depending on your operating system, you can download it. You can download the one that is fit for your operating system. So David, sorry you missed the first part. Um, Maybe when you are free, you can come back and you can come back to our page and look at it. You didn't miss so much. You didn't miss so much. Just come back to our page and look at what we have discussed so far. Please, if you are here and you have not subscribed to our channel, kindly subscribe to our channel because we'll be uploading videos as well, and also for upcoming sessions, because we'll be having this every Saturday till we are done with what we have on the description. And also, if you have your friends who are interested in cloud computing, you can also invite them to join us, because I know that they will learn a lot from this bootcamp. So let's just give it some few minutes. It's almost done with the installation. So engineer, you are asking for the record session. So as I've said earlier, the video will be on our page. So anytime you're free, you can come to our page and you can rewatch it again. Okay. Yes, the virtual box. Golden is asking whether the virtual box contains the hypervisor. Yes, the virtual box is the hypervisor that you can use to install Ubuntu or you can use to run Ubuntu. I have already pre-downloaded it. That's why I didn't download it again because it will waste much time. That's why I had to pre-download it before the class. the operating system has completed. So the installation of the operating system has been completed. So you can see this is Ubuntu operating system. So now for me to log into the operating system, I'll just click on this Ubuntu. So this Ubuntu is the username. Then I can now type the password that I have already configured initially. So you can see I now have a new operating system on my machine. So on the host machine, I have Mac operating system, while on the virtual machine now, I have what? Ubuntu operating system. So that's that. So now if I click here, so these are different programs on Linux operating system. You can also click here. So we'll look at this operating system in our next class. But basically, we'll be focusing on what? On the terminal. We'll be focusing on the terminal. So this is what we'll call the terminal. So what we'll be doing here is just typing command. So this is where we'll be focusing, because most cloud computing services are done on terminal. So most of the things we'll be doing on our cloud class will be using commands. So this is where we'll be focusing. So that's where we'll stop today. I don't want this class to exceed 1 hour. So if you have any question, so drop it. I will look at it. So let's look at some questions here. So Michael is asking, which is better? So Michael is asking, which is better? Is it VMware or VirtualBox? Anyone is okay. Whether you use VMware or VirtualBox, anyone is okay. But in terms of the one that is easier to use, I think VirtualBox is easier to use. And also, in terms of popularity, VirtualBox is more popular than VMware, but you can use any. Um, Golden is asking whether we're to download Oracle VM. So that's what we'll be using as our hypervisor. Yes, Oracle VM is a type 2 hypervisor. So, and that's what we'll be using. So type 1 hypervisor are used by cloud computing platform, which they use to install on their hardware directly for companies and other individuals to use and create virtual machines on their platform, which we will be looking at. So when we get to creating EC2 instances, we will look at how to create virtual machines on the cloud, because the one we did now is just on our machine. So the one we did now is just on our local machine. So when we get to cloud, we'll see how to create virtual machine on the cloud. So Dave is asking for the scope of the training. The scope of the training is just cloud fundamentals. We'll be looking at, so look at the description, you will see what we are going to achieve in this training, because I listed out everything we are going to do on this training. So all that's all. I guess I have made justice to all the questions that have been asked. So thank you for today's session. And if you have been impacted today, please kindly drop your review of the class today. Have any improvements anywhere you want us to improve, kindly drop it. If you have been impacted, kindly drop your review. Thank you so much. Thank you very much for being a part of this bootcamp. So we'll be having the next session by next week, Saturday, the same time. Invite your friends. If you have not subscribed to our channel, kindly subscribe to our channel. Thank you. Thank you. Have a great weekend.